What's up, everybody? It's your boy Showtimedr. So I got a request from... God, I forget who. But somebody really cool, really cool. Anyways, they wanted to see my hero box and which heroes I had and to talk about them a little bit and what I use them for, etc. So, we're going to go ahead and just do just that. So, let me go to... This is the #1 team I'm using right now, so I'll go over each hero individually. Turn on the freaking AC. I'm actually wearing like a normal shirt today. Okay, so this is Heavenly Technician Lid. Lid is one of the storyline heroes in the game. There's a couple different versions of her. There's some like a Halloween version and like a summer version and the regular version, but this is the most powerful version in the game right now. Heavenly Technician Lid. She's a CG Lid, as we call her, so she actually has a cinematic that plays whenever her limit burst goes off. So let's go ahead. I'll go into what she does and what I got her with. So right here I got the Algaean arm on her. It's pretty much, you get it from one of the trials when you fight the big robot. High Tide, it's basically a thing that boosts your LB gauge fill rate. So basically you get your limit faster. And then I've taken it through, I forget what that place is called, Melkaneer Castle or whatever, to get it some boosts. So basically HP bonus, and then Seal of Life and Power is 15% attack, 15% HP. Pretty rare to get in there, so that was actually a pretty big find for that. Yeah, that's it with that. And then I got her with the Grasping Spear, just gets her a little bit more health. This doesn't matter, it's only for a certain character. More spirit, more defense, a little bit of earth resist. So it's pretty cool. And then, yeah, I won't go over every little thing I got. I'll just go over like some of the stuff I really like her with. The Microchew cap, it's kind of hard to get a good cap in this game. Honestly, that's one of the major issues. Not issues, but one of the things you'll be dealing with as a player. But it's always good for your supports to get them a little bit of spirit, a little bit of defense, because spirit helps not only with their magic resistance, but with the healing. And some extra HPs and some resistances as well. Never a bad thing. Now Cloud's uniform, that's basically does what it says there. More HP, a little bit of attack, defense, and spirit. Ribbon, for those of you that are familiar with the Final Fantasy VII, or Final Fantasy, pretty much any of the games that Ribbon's appeared in, it basically nullifies almost all status elements of poisons, blind, sleep, silence, paralyze, confusion, disease, and stone. It does not stop. It's funny as that is to say. Stop can still get on you unless you have a character specifically geared to mess with that. And then there's also Charm, which in most cases can't be stopped. There are a couple exceptions, but I don't think I have any of them. So Ribbon's an excellent item. There's varying degrees of ribbons in this game. And then I got her with Riku's Pouch. Now Riku's Pouch, the cool thing about that, gives you a little bit of defense, but the main reason you get is for this Chaos Grenade. Damage, inflict random status elements, and reduce stats. I believe it's by 45%. So not bad for an AoE ability that's Riku's TMR. So if you happen to pull a Riku early and you're a newer player looking to getting that. Also Eccentric's really good. That actually boosts the LB gauge fill rate. The most out of anything, even her passive abilities. So that's pretty cool. And then, you know, I gave her Bushido Freedom in case we need a Dispel. Otherwise I gave her mostly life support stuff. So she's super awesome. Let me look into her abilities. I'll show you which ones are awesome. Arms Dissolver and Barrier Dissolver, they basically take off 50% of each of what they say. So attack and magic for arms and defense and spirit for Barrier Dissolver. The Absorbs, they don't do any damage, but they take 60% off a single person. So that's pretty good. Rubber Hammer cures Charm. Pretty unique in this game. It's kind of hard to cure Charm sometimes. And then, you know, the majority of the things, she has like a bunch of item effects and passive effects that she gets depending on what she's wielding. So she's a super good unit. If you get her, you got one of the best breakers in the game. Breakers are worth their weight in gold. Probably platinum, honestly, in this game. And then right here, we're going to get into Sephiroth. So Sephiroth, he's not the most powerful hero in the game. Like, he's not this amazing, crazy unit. But he does a couple things that most damage units slash finisher units can't do, and we'll get into those in a moment. I got him his TMR, which is the Masamune. Gives him Octo Slash, which is a unique... oh, that's double hand. It's a unique ability to him, basically. So double hand actually is only for... It gives you an attack boost if you wield single target. But in this case, I have him dual wielding because it actually makes more sense. I'll show you why later. But this is just... 150 attack on a sword is pretty amazing. The top swords in the game right now are mostly like 180, so 150 from a TMR is pretty good. And then, you know, I give him the same Seal of Life and Power, more attack, more HP, so I'm pretty satisfied with that. Now, he has light. He does light damage, and he has an Imperil to light. And Imperil means it lowers the resistances. So in his case of light, you see this here, how this is highlighted. That means that it's a light weapon. Or if any of these other ones were highlighted, it would be that weapon. I got 17% attack power plus Seal of Life and Power on this weapon as well. So that is another 15% attack. So 32% attack and 50% life. So he's rolling pretty fat here. And since this is a holy weapon, what you end up doing, I won't get into this other stuff. It's all basically just attack boost. Amp stuff, nothing super crazy special. I'll show you what Imperil's do in a second, but Katana Mastery, that gives you 50% more attack with katanas. Castle Warfare, I actually used that because we were fighting a human. I should actually take that off, but it's only 10% attack, but it also boosts attack against humans by 50%. I actually need to take that off. In fact, let's do that right now, because there's no real humans that we're fighting. We'll give them this for now. And I'm sure I'll replace that. And then Awesome Swordsman, it basically gives them the ability to dual wield while giving, I think it's either a 15 or 30% boost. I think it's 30 because he has 2 katanas boost to attack. So that's pretty sick. Now we'll make Sephiroth special. First of all, he has full life, which is pretty rare on a DPS. So he can revive one ally to full, which actually has come in handy for me a couple times. The craziest thing about Sephiroth, mostly this Heaven's Wept, damage and reduce light and dark resistance for one enemy. The Imperil for light and dark resistance, I believe it's 70%. There aren't too many dark swords in the game, because unfortunately, Gumi hasn't put in too many like holy bosses that are... basically, holy is more useful than dark is in this game, because there's not that many holy bosses that you fight. Which, honestly, I think they need to change that. They need to add some more. He also has some magic. But the crazy thing is, he can actually give himself dark with this ability. But, you know, you're wasting a turn doing it. So you only do that, really, if you want to restore your HP and MP. Like, someone just burned your HP or something. But otherwise, the other cool thing about Sephiroth is he can adapt to a bunch of chainer families. So in this game, chains, basically... people that have the same animations or same attack ratio as other units, you can chain with them, magic and attack. So the higher your chain goes, like say it gets to 100, there's a damage multiplier to all the damage that keeps coming in. So the higher it goes, the more damage you're doing with the same attack. So if you have like say 2 or 3 people that have the same chain family, you'll just do ridiculous damage, and that's what a finisher is in this game. You buff your finisher, you imperil, and you break the enemy, and then you just chain until you finish off the guy. I don't have the best chainers in the game for the most part, but I'm working on it. But the cool thing about Sephiroth is he can fit in multiple chainer families. So the most popular one is the Orlandu family. Divine, the guy from Final Fantasy, Swordmaster, or Thunder God, I think was his name. And then, but he also has a chain ability with Octo Slash, and then there's 1 or 2 other chain abilities that he has with his different abilities. So Sephiroth, he's kind of like a chameleon. He can fit right in with most units as far as chaining goes and be a strong finisher for you. And usually the most powerful finishers in this game have an imperil for whatever their element is that they're using. Like Frivia is another example, the ice duelist girl, if you get her. Alright, so we're going to get a maritime strategist, Nicol. Nicol's also a unit in the story, and there's a bunch of versions of him as well, just like Lid. Pretty much all the people I say that are CG, there's a bunch of versions of them, but in general, the CG version is going to be the best. Now, CG Nicole is one of the best buffers in the game. He recently got surpassed a little bit by Judge, and I think there's one other person. Which I have a Judge, I'll show you that. But it's only because they have their 7-star units, whereas Nicole still is at 6-star. Once he gets to 7-star, I'm sure he'll be competing. And may possibly take the top slot back. Now on your supports, in general you want to run them dual wield, and you can accomplish that with a Bowie knife. I believe there's a Bowie knife, one of the early rewards in the game, for one of either the trials or some quests you do or something. So Bowie knife enables dual wield. So it's a quick, cheap way to get dual wield without having to sacrifice a slot. And then also I ran this through the Still Castle, so I got it High Tide. High Tide basically increases the LB gauge. And then some HP, you know, for support. The attack damage is kind of negligible, honestly. And now I got an Elven Staff. So an Elven Staff... Oh, that's funny. I meant to actually run this again. I forgot. Oh, well. HP 10, I got him a little bit more here, but I meant to get him more HP and I just failed. But a butt ton of Spirit. Spirit's really good on your support units that have a regen spell because it will amp the HP regen. I'm not sure about the MP regen, but I know it amps the HP regen. So that's always a good thing to have. And then Hairpin of Purity, that's actually CG Fina's limit, or TMR, excuse me, Trust Mastery reward. So it's basically a ribbon with some stats. Gives them a little bit of spirit, a little bit of defense, a little bit of magic. So really good item there. As a hat as well, so that's really cool. And then Strategic Cape, that's actually Nicole's TMR. Gives them a bunch of MP, some magic, some spirit, some defense. And some water and ice resist, 50%, which is nothing to sneeze at. You can actually, if you need it, you can swap it onto like one of your tanks if you happen to need one of these resists. And it works pretty well, not just on him, but on any support, honestly. It's usually best in slot for most of them. Merald's build, I basically just use that for the extra MP, because Nicole burns through a ton of MP, as I will show you later. And then Good Chamberlain, it's basically whenever he gets hit, he has a chance of restoring HP for all allies. Which can be pretty nice, little AoE heal, and a little bit of passive spirit and magic as well. So the cool, oh, let me get to this. So you see most of the stuff I'm amping here is LB gauge rate fill, HP, and spirit. That's most of the stuff, and MP a little bit, I'm trying, because you see his MP's at 705 up here. So his skills, he can cast water and ice magic, which is good for some of the missions that you come across, because water is actually fairly rare to find on most units. And he has stone from Titan, that's the Esper I run him with. But you see here, he's got dual cast. Linked Stance means he can cast 2 of these abilities, and most of these are either single target or AoE buffs. Light and Dark Resistance, Ice and Water Resistance, Boost Attack, Defense, Magic, Spirit. Impregnable Stance, reduce damage taken for all allies. It's 30% for 3 turns. Soulful Stance gives a HP regen on top of boosting stats by, I believe it's 100%. It might be like 1 something, 110, but it's 100. And then down here you can get a little risky. He also has MP restore. You can get a little risky if you want. Reduce defense and spirit and boost attack and magic by 130%. And same thing, you could go, like say you got a weaker guy that you got to fulfill some quest thing, like summon an Esper or something. Well, you can reduce your team's attack and magic and boost their defense and spirit so that they can survive, and then get all your missions done, and then go back to buffing normal stuff. So this guy, he's one of the best units in the game right now, buff-wise. Judge surpasses him a little bit, but Nicole still does things that Judge can't do. So, and this right here is Lotus Mage Fina. Fina, you meet her almost immediately in the game. There's a billion versions of Fina. There's more versions of her than most characters in this game. But Lotus Mage Fina is probably the best one. There's an argument to be made for 2 other ones, but in general, Lotus Mage Fina is one of like the 4 healers in this game that completely change the game for you once you get them. So give me a quick second, guys. I gotta mess with something. Okay, so On Fina, you want to have a ton of Spirit, because not only does Spirit affect her ability to heal, but it also affects her ability to do damage. Most of her damage is Spirit-based, even her magic. A lot of her magic stuff that she does. So you're gonna want to get her with Staff of Osiris. That came from a quest or one of the old missions that was in the game before. So if you don't have it, don't worry about it. Just get her whatever you can that has Spirit, HP, and hopefully a little bit of MP as well, if you can swing it. As you see here, when I took this in, I boosted the Spirit and the HP. This is a holy weapon, so keep that in mind. And then Nirvana, this is actually Yuna from Final Fantasy X's TMR. It gives auto limit, so it's filling LB gauge every turn. It's best in slot for her. If you can get 2, I'm not sure if 2 even stack, but if you can get 2, that'd be godly for Fina. Boosted the Spirit, you know, because it comes with 116 Spirit, so she's rocking her Spirit out right now. Cat Ear Hood, you know, more Spirit, a little bit of magic, some resist. Pretty good. Rainbow Robe, that's actually Marie's TMR. 30% to almost every resist except Dark. And then a bunch of magic, Spirit, and defense. This is actually one of the better robes in the game for defense. And if you happen to have a magic tank that has, you know, they're tanking magic damage, that's a caster. That's not a... I'm forgetting his name right now. Rain. So, Fairy Scrunchy, that's there, you know, more HP, a little bit of Spirit. The nullification thing doesn't matter, I think she's naturally resistant to that. And Wind Up Ishtola. I could actually probably replace this, I'll have to look later. Auto Shell, it's actually not that good. It sounds good, it's cool for the first turn, but usually you're going to be buffing the stats, and after you buff the stats, the Auto Shell doesn't take effect. So... And then, you know, get her dual wield. Dream Maiden's Oracle, boost Spirit when equipped with a staff. I gave her Barrier Mage Oath. It's actually Misty Dia's TMR. Boost Spirit 25% and boost Spirit with a staff, so that's pretty sexy. And then this also boosts Spirit. So we'll get into her abilities here. She has full life, she can Dispel, she can cure most status elements. Re-Raise is a really good one. AoE heal. She has Ultima. She can still mana with Osmos. And then if you come over here to her specials, she gets all types of crazy stuff. Hitting Fina, she has like 3 possible counters. One's an attack, one's a charm, one's a heal. Manatopia regens mana. Prime Heal gets rid of almost everything. Not just, it restores HP and gets rid of almost every status element besides Stop and Charm. And, you know, she's just a ridiculous hero, so if you're lucky enough to get this unit, this is one of the better heal support units in the game, so... Her only weakness is she does nothing about Stop, which, I forget her name now, but the other big healer, I'll show you her later. She has something about that. Now, Blossom Sage Sakura, I actually got lucky, I got a second Sakura a couple days ago. So I'm ready whenever she hits 7 stars. Sakura is actually one of the strongest casters in the game. Arguably the strongest caster in the game now. Not at the moment because there is a 7-star Trance Terra. Trance Terra is probably the strongest caster in the game. There's also a 7-star Barbara Sia. And you know, there's various other people that can lay claim to that title. But the cool thing about Sakura is, you know, you're amping her magic as much as you can. So that's why. Mateus Malice, I believe it's best in slot for her right now. You know, free HP. Got her that Seal of Skill and Magic, so that's 15% magic and MP. And then Draco Spike, you know, it's a filler. More Seal of Might and Magic, so buffed up her magic as much as I could. Crown of the Covenant, it's a hat. Gives you 20% magic, pretty good for a hat. A little bit of Spirit there as well. Siren's Robe, you know, it's alright. I could do better, but gives a decent amount of magic. And these two things, they just amp all stats, including magic, which is what I'm doing. And then Sage of Mystidia, that's her TMR. So boosts magic by 40 and MP by 20 and fills the LB God. Super good. Rod Mastery gives you 50% more magic. Dual wield, you're going to want to dual wield. Barbara Sia's Spirit, this is Barbara Sia's TMR. For those of you that remember her from Final Fantasy IV, boosts HP by 30 and magic damage against And it's 50% magic damage, by the way. Human, beast, avian, and stone monster, so that's really good. Adds some good survivability. She doesn't come with much magic of her own, but the cool thing is, she can support you a little bit. She has a defensive barrier. She has some resistance buffs. She can block. She regenerates 8 MP. She can block most status elements, including stop, which is pretty nice. She has quick combos, so she can do 2 of any of these per turn. Usually you're going to be sticking to Rebel Intention, or if there's a Thunder, she has a Thunder Imperil. She actually has a lot of Imperil. She has Holy Imperil and Dark Imperil. You know, you can just choose to attack, increase power with consecutive use, do Thunder, or Holy, or Dark. It's up to you. And then she has a counter that hits with a Shock. So she's actually a pretty badass unit, and that's usually the team I run if I don't need a tank or anything else crazy. Now, in the case of... we'll get to these units later. When I do need a tank, I run this team. We'll get into Liquid Metal Slime first. So Liquid Metal Slime, he's kind of a unique unit. He's from Dragon Quest, for those of you that played that. He can equip most things. The only reason he can equip a shield is because I gave him gauntlets. Right here. Normally what you want to do with this guy is get his health as high as possible. You see his health isn't that big. But, and I gave him safety bit because I was fighting Diablo's 3-star, so he had a death spell. But honestly, I should get rid of that and give him like some HP. But I don't know if we have anything with HP that's decent enough for him. I'll give him that for now. So... but the crazy thing about him is, also you can't put abilities on him, because it would be super broke. So you notice his resistance is here, right? 50% basically to everything. So this guy has metal body, reduced damage by 80%. Boosts attack, defense, magical, and spirit by 30%. Boosts all resistances by 50%. Chance of dodging physical attacks. I actually upgraded this. This is the +2 version. And fill LB gauge every turn. Now, his LB is basically an AoE taunt, which is pretty funny. He takes most damage for you. All of his other skills are garbage, but he is a ridiculous provoke tank. It's pretty funny because he can dodge some stuff, and you know, he was available during the Dragon Quest event, so most likely if you're newer to the game you don't got him, but if you do have him and you didn't build him, he's a ridiculously good off tank up until you get like Judge or like a Noctis or something. So right here, this is Awakened Rain. I've been talking about him earlier. He's currently the best magic tank in the game. He has a bunch of heirloom, because Rain is the main character of the game, basically. And he has a bunch of equipment made for him that you can go and retrieve. So like Crimson Soul gives him HP and MP by 30. That's fucking ridiculous for a tank. And then if you run this into Still Castle, you can get him more HP. And this is a fire weapon, so it satisfies all the fire requirement quests, which is pretty cool. And then, you know, I got him with Hero Shield here. Gives him a butt-ton more resistance, some defense. Occasionally I'd swap him in as a defensive tank as well, depending on what I'm doing. You know, a helmet with more spirit and defense. He needs as much spirit as possible in most cases, because spirit is his, you know, the defense to magic. And, you know, he gets Rain's Insignia once you do his storyline thing. Gives him another HP, 15%. Just ridiculous stuff. And then Domino's Boots. More HP, more defense. Nullify one of his weaknesses. And then Protector of Lapis is actually his TMR. HP and Spirit, or HP by 20, Spirit by 40, and fills LB gauge, so... super good stuff. Just buff his spirit and his resistances as much as you can. Because sometimes in this game there's magic damage that doesn't have a particular element, so you're going to want his spirit to be high for that. Otherwise you can just mix and match and get him to 100% or whatever percentage you need to resist whatever you're fighting. And he'll do pretty good for you. He's pretty sexy unit. Actually, let me go to... he's one of my 2 7-stars that I have right now. Let me go show you his abilities. So he has Raise, which, you know, on occasion could get you out of trouble. Pretty nice. Pretty much, man, his abilities are ridiculous. He boosts his own spirit. If he uses Complete Awakening, which uses his LB gauge, he boosts all his stats by 200%, which is ridiculous. That's like one of the biggest buffs in the game. He can reduce damage taken by himself. He covers magical damage. He can actually reduce magic to an enemy by 70%, which is a pretty strong single target magic reduction. And, you know, he just gets a bunch of boost to defense and HP and LB gauge fill rate, and it's just ridiculous. This guy nullifies a lot of things. Boosts resistances. He's just one of the most ridiculous characters in the game right now, tank-wise. So if you happen to get yourself a Vagrant Night Rain, or excuse me, an Awakened Rain, he doesn't have a CG, though, so that's one strike against him. Now, Judge Zarg, if you get him in the 6-star form, he's still a perfectly great unit. He can fill the row of your buffer, and he can actually be an off-tank if you need him to be an off-tank, if you happen to get him and you're early in the game. So the cool thing about Judge, and like I said, he's probably the best overall buff unit right now. Honestly, not sure why I have him with this. This gives him a little dodge. Oh, that's right, I was trying to make him a dodge tank for a little bit. Yeah, that didn't work out so well, but... Because the guy I was fighting had, you can't dodge me. So, Judge's Helm, that's his TMR. 15% resistance to everything but dark. And gives him a decent amount of defense and spirit. Also, so you guys know, most of the 7-stars in this game, when they equip their own TMRs, they get an extra... Usually it's a passive. In his case, it is... Let me find it here. Pillar of the Empire. Boost defense, spirit, HP, and MP by 20%, nullify stop, and boost LB effects. So basically, he gets a more powerful LB effect while being resistant to stop, which is pretty rare in this game for most units. Now, you know, I don't have them with the best stuff because I use them sparingly right now because I'm still building them up. But overall, I mean, I give him some dodge, some HP, and then the stuff he can do. He has Noctis as a TMR right now, so he can cast Alterna, which is kind of funny. Dispel is actually a very underrated skill in this game, a single target Dispel. But this guy, he's ridiculous. He boosts his spirit and his defense like crazy, which is good for defensive purposes. He can boost his attack and stuff a little bit. He has damage reduction magic, lots of holy magic. He's immune to most things. He powers up when he's low health. He has a chance of dodging physical and magic damage. And by the time you get this guy to 120, he has a 40% chance, just passively without anything else, to dodge physical attacks and 20% chance to dodge magical attacks. Now you can amp that up with equipment. You can probably get his magic dodge to like 40 to 50% if you really want. And his physical dodge to 100%. So this guy can serve as an off-tank for you if you need one. You're just going to have to get him a Provoke. Or, you know, run him with Golem or something. So that he can tank a little bit. And he has a heal that also doubles as a revive. So that's pretty strong. And he has some of the best buffs in the game. So this one, not only does it boost everything by, I think it's 100%. Once you level it up all the way. It starts at 60, but it also gives you resistances to all these things, which is pretty good. And then Arcadia Might, this is usually what I cast first turn, once every 7 turns. Boost attack, defense, magic, and spirit. And reduce damage taken, I believe it's by 40%, which is very strong. And able quickening. Quickening is, he can use abilities twice, certain abilities. And his LB gives you a 50% once you build it up all the way, damage mitigation, which is very strong. The strongest in the game, I believe, right now. So Zarg's an awesome unit. I use him, you know, probably like once out of every 4 runs, because I usually stick with Nicole for now. I guess we'll get into Malfisi here. So Malfisa, unfortunately, I only got 1 copy of her. She can also be 7-star. I pulled really hard on her, but I didn't get her, so I'm kind of sad about that. But she's a hybrid unit, probably the most powerful hybrid in the game right now. And a unique combo, Wind Dark. So she is a demon killer. If you get her to 120, she will damn near one-shot demons. It doesn't matter who it is. It's crazy. Assuming you got her, you know, good gear. She actually operates off of fists, and this is her TMR. So you want to get her stuff that has combination magic attack. You probably want to lean more magic than attack, but still get some attack. And then you notice this doesn't have an element. So she can cast some magics, which are pretty cool. She can also chain with Barbarcia. Just on the Eraga stuff, though, not on Whirlwind. And she starts with dual cast, and I think she eventually gets more stuff, but, you know, she boosts her attack and magic with a lot of her passives. And I don't have all her abilities, but eventually, once you get her to 7 stars, she gets like a fat damage boost on demons. And when I was fighting that 3-star, Diablo, she took him from like 100% to like 40% in one turn. It was pretty ridiculous. I actually had to slow down to fulfill the mission requirements. Now, Transterra, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show you her. We'll get back to her later, though. I'm going to show you guys all the stuff that's available for enhancing units. But TLDR, Transterra is probably, if not the most powerful caster in the game, one of the most powerful casters in the game. Probably is the most powerful caster in the game. We'll get more on that later. Zaz I only have here. This is actually my TMR build team. There's a way that you can farm with, and Gumi actually allows that, but with macros, you can farm TMRs a little bit by rerunning Earth Shrine over and over again. So this is my TMR. I'm not going to use Zaz most likely, but the TMR I want from him is 20-sided die. Boost physical evasion by 20%. So that'll be pretty good for my dodge tank eventually when I get that done. Frida, as far as I know, she's not that great a unit, but she has Martial Glove, True Double Hand Aurora, which is basically, if you have a single weapon equipped, I think it's a 50% attack boost. So it's pretty sexy. And then this girl, I'm not even sure if 210's a decent unit or not. She's from, you know, the same series that 2B and 9S are from. But I'm getting Mechanical Heart from her. It's a pretty good tanking and sometimes ability, especially for PvP. Boost HP and Spirit by 15%. Chance of restoring our own HP when receiving a physical or magical attack. So if you're fighting something that hits you multiple times, really weak, but adds up, this thing can go off like, I don't know if there's a limit, but I've seen it go off like 5, 6, 7, 8 times in a turn, and it heals for a pretty fat amount. So that's what this team's for mostly. And then Transterra, her TMR is actually not that bad either. It enables double cast. So you can give double cast to somebody, a little bit of stats, and then MP plus 30. So for someone like Dragon Lord or CG Sakura, who I showed you earlier, you can give them dual cast and get them a spell like Arterna or Ultima, and then they can cast regular magic, which will be pretty cool. We'll get more into Transterra later. That's going to be the second part of this video. Or maybe I'll do a separate video, we'll see. Otherwise, all this is just for the event that's going right now. Alright, so we'll get into what my box looks like. I'll show you. And I'll give you real quick synopsises on what characters do. So let's go ahead and make sure everything's sorted by rarity. Alright, so what unit is worth looking at for you guys? Let's see. Delita? Either Delita or Knight Delita, I think both of them, they both have really strong physical breaks. I think it's 70% damage and reduced defense. I think you have to skill it up, but once you do, so if you manage to get one of the Delitas, keep that in mind. They are powerful breakers. Not sure about his spirit break, but I know his defense break is, I think it is the best in the game actually, because even CG Lid, she does 60%. Unless CG Lid does her LB, her LB is 70% full break on every stat. But if you just want like a real quick shield break, Delita is your man. So Lightning, for those of you guys that are new, if you do all the newbie quests, Lightning's a unit you get. Pretty good unit actually, not a bad unit. The thing that makes her, she does lightning damage clearly, but the cool thing about her, she does have an Imperil here. Damage and reduced lightning resistance. So if you happen to get her with You know, a sword that has lightning on it, or somehow imbue her with lightning. That will be really good. She also has skills that do lightning. So you're not completely out of the water until you have that. Let's see, lightning damage and reduce lightning resistance for all enemies, so that's pretty sexy. So this is a very good unit to get. She also, I believe, has a 7-star. So, although she's on an expedition, so I can't go into her gear right now. Snow for the most part is garbage, but championship belt's really good. Boosts attack and defense when equipped with fists, so your fist units gives you a good amount of attack and defense as well on the TMRs. This guy, Ace, he's actually pretty good too. If you skill him up all the way, he gets a, what is it, Tri-Beam Laser, which basically deals partially unmitigated magic damage to all enemies. It can become super strong if you get him enough magic. And it also gives an imperil to, I believe, multiple abilities as well if you level it up. So he's actually really good. Does good AoE damage. Fina, Dark Fina. This is a Dark Fina. Dark Bond's a really good TMR. I believe it boosts magic by 60% if you have a rod and robe. 30% each. When you get her 7-star, she gets a counter that's really good, but basically she's there for dark damage, so if you need dark damage for whatever reason, this is your girl right here, and if you happen to get 2 of her, hey, consider getting her a 7-star. She's not as bad as I was led to believe. Now Orlando, this is the king of the Orlando chaining families from Final Fantasy Tactics. The cool thing about him, you just have to get him like a holy sword, and then chain him with someone like Sephiroth, but you see here Divine Ruination, partially unmitigated damage, and reduced light resistance for one enemy. So you get him a holy weapon, you do this. It's the same chain as Sephiroth's, I believe it's the Heavens Wept, or anyone else. There's guides on chain families online, guys. So. And overall, he's a pretty good character, but that's the main reason you get him. He can also, if you upgrade his Crush Weapon, he reduces damage by 70%, I believe it is. It might be 60% for attack and magic. That can be pretty strong. So this guy, if you don't have a finishers and a chainer and a attack magic breaker, this guy's pretty damn good. And you can 7-star him as well. I'm sure he gets even more ridiculous. I haven't even looked at his 7-star stuff. Solal. If you don't have like a judge or a, you know, a Nicole or any other buffer, she can actually step in and be a pretty decent buffer for you. The issue with her is she's a bard, so you're gonna have to get her like a. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know she had that. You're gonna have to get her like a lute or some type of instrument to make her more effective. And I honestly don't know the ins and outs of her, but I know she can step in and be a pretty decent buffer for you. So if you got her, that's her role. Now Marie can get 7-star, but from what I understand, her 7-star is not that great. That rainbow robe I showed you earlier, that's what her TMR is. The cool thing about Marie is she casts a lot of resistance magic. So, and if you upgrade her resistance, I think it's Love You All, it'll gradually restore HP and a HP regen, so she can actually kind of be a bastard healer as well. Not a great, like, instant healer, but she can get you some regen on top of all the resistances. She can also, if you upgrade this, she can basically boost resistance to all status elements in the game that are not charm or stop. So that's pretty sexy. And then, you know, she has a imperil here, 50% to everything on all enemies. You know, nothing to be sneezed at right there. And I'm sure she gets more stuff on 7-star, but that's all the stuff I have her with. Now, let's see here. Dragon Lord, if you're new, you probably don't have Dragon Lord, but if you happen to get him, damn good hero for one reason. Buff his magic as much as possible, because he has a passive that gives him 80% bonus magic. And he has a spell that gets... Why does it say no usable? Oh, yeah, okay. Frizzle. You're going to want to buff Frizzle as much as possible. It's fire damage, single target, but it hits hard. A lot of mana, so you're going to have to get him some mana. It hits really hard. And if you want to have him with regular, like, AoE magic, you know, get him a Ring of the Lucille or something else that gives him, like, Ultima or Alterna or whatever. And he can cast some AoE magic for you and hit really hard with that as well. So, pretty good unit, but he has, like, very situational, you know. You need fire damage or you need just magic damage in general. He can fill that role for you. Who's this? Eileen. I believe regular Eileen can get 7-star? I'm not 100% sure on that. Maybe not yet. She's okay. She chains with, what's her name? EX Eileen. It's pretty hard to get her. With Pile Driver, and then also she can get a Earth Spear. She has an Earth Imperil. It's this one. And she can get an Earth Spear on her TMR Artisan. So assuming you get someone else with Earth damage, you know, you can go ahead and chain that. But her chains are kind of weird, and she's kind of odd because she has a lot of animations that a lot of characters don't have. So... Rem, I know Rem's good, but I don't know exactly why. I only got one copy. People were telling me that her 7-star is really good. She can serve you as a decent healer, like in a Fina stage, is what I believe. So if you happen to have a Rem, hey, make her your main healer if you don't have any of the other units. If you have 2 Rems, get that 7-star. Go get her. Titus, I'm not sure as of now, but for a long time, Titus was actually the strongest finisher in the game. He does water damage with his Brotherhood. And I'm not even sure if he has a 7-star yet. I don't know. But for a long time, he was the strongest finisher. But most people use Frevia, which I'll show you her later, because Frevia is just easier to build. But as you see here, I'm trying to figure out which one was his finisher. Because the thing I don't understand about Titus being a finisher is he doesn't have a water imperil from what I can see. Because this is unmitigated water damage and add water physical attack, but... So I don't know, somehow you get him a water imperil. Not quite sure where that comes from, but... Anyway, supposedly he was, at least for a long time, the best finisher in the game. He might not be now. Not sure. Riku, I can't show you her gear because she's on an expedition, but the cool thing about Riku, besides Riku's pouch, which I showed you earlier, if you get her a lot of LB gauge fill, she can do basically chain, if there's any way to show it, I guess not. Oh yeah, right here. Hyper Mighty G. Now Hyper Mighty G, you know, it boosts stats, that's all good, but the main thing is automatically revives all allies one time. So if you can guarantee her a bunch of LB Chris and get her eccentric and then get her a bunch of stuff that boosts her LB gauge passively, you can cast this every turn. And basically, even if stuff one-shots you, like big abilities, you almost don't have to worry about it. It can be super annoying in PvP. And otherwise, she's a pretty good support unit, but she's not going to do, you know, major craziness or anything. Because a lot of her stuff is setting up for other stuff. So, there's Knight Delita. Basically does the same thing as regular Delita. I'm honestly not sure which one's better, but Grand Armor is actually a pretty good... Probably actually the best physical defense armor in the game. So lots of defense, HP plus 15%, decent amount of spirit there. And then this guy, Viridus of the Earth, the only reason you should be concerned about him at all is because he has a ability that, let's see if I can find it. Convert Earth damage received to HP restoration. So essentially he absorbs Earth damage. So when you have to fight like 3-star Earth Espers, along with anyone that does earth damage, always keep this guy in mind because he can tank physical. And his spirit's actually not that bad either if you can figure out a way to get him. Like taunt or provoke or whatever. But otherwise, you know, you're probably going to find better tanks. Now Noctis. Noctis is one of the most broken heroes in the game. Ring of Lucille, I've talked to you guys about that earlier. Death is basically a chance to instantly KO someone and restore HP. Alterna, probably the most powerful pure magic spell in the game, not counting skills. Holy is a counter move that it hits the enemy with Holy. Has a chance to when you get hit. And you know, attack and magic plus 30, that's all good. A little bit of spirit, a little bit of MP. But the crazy thing about Noctis is he can fill almost any role in the game. So, like, Warp Strike, it's a pretty good damage and reduce attack and defense for one enemy. Point Blank Warp Strike, which is a better version of that, is it has a higher multiplier whenever you enable that. That's what regular Warp Strike leans into. Link can basically buff all allies and fills his own AB or LB gauge, which on occasion, if there's a turn where like you shouldn't hit the enemy, this is a good skill to use. And then cover, he can regenerate HP and MP for allies, which is pretty cool. He does have a full revive for one unit. These flasks, they actually operate off of magic, but he has Thunder, Blizzard, and Fire, so he can fill those roles. Fish, that is his taunt, so you can actually make him a provoke tank in this game if you want. And he's pretty easy because he has 20% passive dodge. He's pretty easy to get to 100% dodge because his TMR gives 25%. So you just fill in the other 55%, and you can make him a provoke off tank, physical tank, for some encounters in the game. That's pretty good. Also, he has a little bit of chance of evading magic attacks as well, and he has his own counter, just physical attacks on top of his ring. And then this Power of Kings, basically he boosts all types of stats depending on what you gear him with. So, and considering he gets almost everyone in the game, that's pretty ridiculous. So Noctis, he can also be like, he can heal a little bit, he can do magic damage, he can revive, he can damage, he can basically do almost everything except cover. And you can actually give him cover if you want, which is pretty funny. Okay, Ayaka. Here we go to her. So Ayaka, she is, along with Fina and Rem, and I believe, I forget her name, but the little summoner girl from Final Fantasy IX, they're considered the best healers in the game. And a reason being, Pure Right Blessing, which is her TMR, I have it on, I believe it's Nickel. HP, MP, and fill a B gauge every turn. Anything that does that is pure gold for staying power in battles. The cool thing about her is, not only does she get a bunch of cures and full life and dispels, etc., re-raise, but she is fully immune to stop. You can't stop this lady, and also she has a buff that removes stop from all allies. And then I believe she has a resistance as well for all allies. Maybe that comes in her 7-star form. But anyways, she doesn't have as much offense as like Fina does, but otherwise this is a very good unit to have for your team. So if you happen to get her, definitely build her. I don't use her as much as I should probably, but there are some fights where I'm considering it more. She also has AoE revive. 100% revive, which is pretty strong. Pretty good regen here. Restore HP and MP for all allies. So she's pretty sexy. Dual white magic. And then Cloud. A couple reasons to get Cloud. Buster style basically doubles the attack of any weapon if you're using it as a single weapon. So if something is 150, it'll become 300, etc. So I forget if it's double. Maybe it's only 50% more. But either way, it's like a lot of damage. So, and then Cloud, he can be a finisher, but the problem with Cloud is there's not too many people that have his chaining frames. So he can hit really hard if you get him, like, you know, his own TMR along with true double hand aura, etc. Large sword mastery. And then he has all of his... He can do Meteor Rain, which is a good AoE, finishing touch. His LB, of course. Guess what? Omni Slash. That's a pretty good finisher. Sorry's pretty good, but he works as a finisher if you get him geared right, but unless you have two Clouds, it's really hard to chain with him, unfortunately. Alright, let's keep going here. So, we have Mystidia. Mystidia is a magic tank, probably about, you know, the second best magic tank behind Awakened Rain right now. So, you know, she has Tritera Wall. So, basically, for those who don't know how most of the tanking things work in this game, not only do they tank a percentage... Basically, a percentage of the damage that would have been done goes away. They can tank AoE spells as well as single target spells. And it doesn't go off 100% of the time, but it goes off most of the time. And she can also, like, reduce damage taken, improve spirit, etc. So, she's pretty strong. So if you don't have Awakened Rain and you get her or the other person that has a shield, I'm sure we'll come across him later. That's your magic tank for now, guys. Start building them up. And then, let's see... This girl, Beatrix, if you don't have, like a lid, CG lid, she works pretty well for an AoE breaker, because she can reduce defense and spirit. I believe this is 45%, and does a good amount of damage as well. And she has holy damage, so you get her a holy sword, because she can reduce light resistance. And overall, she's pretty good, you know, just good damage. Not this amazing unit, but pretty good damage overall. Fulfills a couple roles. Now, this girl, this is who I was talking about, Aiko. Aiko can also be a pretty good healer for you, but the cool thing about Aiko is... she uses instruments. She has, you know, full life, raise, Suenya, holy if you need it. She can remove reductions, which is actually pretty strong because there's a lot of units that can't do that healer-wise. So reductions are basically breaks that are inflicted on you. So if someone reduces your attack or your spirit or whatever, then she can get rid of that for 16 MP, which is pretty easy. Pretty good. And then her specials, all the espers that you have on your team, she can summon. Same thing with any summoner in this game, Yuna or Kid Rydia, etc. And then she can also, where is it? Right here. Boost LB gauge, fill rate for all allies, and fill evocation gauge. Evocation gauge is your summon. So if you have like an Esper mission, she can help you out a lot with that because she'll fill the gauge for you every turn. And you know, she can heal. She has regen. She has staying power, so she's a pretty good unit. You just got to get her some MP and a little bit of extra life, etc. Some spirit. And she'll do really well for you. Now 2B, from what I heard, 2B is getting her 7-star soon. 2B is a very strong character. She's not a finisher, but she has a lot of things she can do. She can dodge a little bit. This pod charge, it's a setup move that basically buffs a lot of her abilities. Gives them either AoE or like gives her weapon Thunder. She has a Thunder in Peril, so with a setup or a Thunder weapon, she can do good Thunder damage chains with like say Lightning or whoever. And she has this blade. Once you do the charge, this becomes a very long, like 3 times damage AoE. Really good in PvP, actually, if you have a sword that does status elements. And overall, but she's not a finisher because she doesn't chain with that many people, unfortunately. She still can help finish, but not as effective as most finishers, but she's still a really strong unit. Yuna, like I was talking about earlier with Aiko, Yuna is a summoner, so she has Nirvana. Best in slot for most people that use Spirit in this game. You know, she has Cure, she has Raise, she has Dispel. Pray to the Aeons, fill Evocation Gauge, and boost own magic and spirit. And then she has some resistances, so she's pretty good. She can serve as a main healer if you want, but the other 4 that came before her are a little bit better. But overall, she's really good. She can boost the damage of Espers, etc. Now, Arania, and I don't have her properly built up, you can 7-star here. She is a Lancer. Pretty strong spear here, by the way, along with high jump. Boost damage for jump attacks. So any Lancer that you have in this game, this is probably your most powerful one. Spear Mastery, so you want to get her spear. These are your jumps, so they do different things. Like one fills LB gauge. One of them restores her health and MP. And the other one does an attack and does an AoE. But overall, if you get her like really beefy, really strong, she can do bonus damage to dragons. And just overall, she can hit really hard if you get her enough like double hand and maybe Buster style or whatever you're looking for, Spear Mastery, etc. So Arania is one of the stronger Lancers in the game. Now Bosch is a very unique character. He is one of the few guys in this game that can cover both physical and magic attacks, but he can only pick one. He can't do both at the same time, otherwise he'd be pretty strong. So his TMR is a Thunder Resist Shield that also increases his chance to evade physical attacks. Actually pretty strong TMR. Huge amount of defense and spirit if you notice. Pretty nasty there. The cool thing about him is not only can he tank physical or magic, but he also has a bunch of breaks. I believe they're 45% breaks. Single target breaks, so you can break whatever stats you want. You know, just buff his health and his spirit or defense. He also does have an AoE. I believe this is like a 40%, or it's a lesser, I know that. It's either 45 and the single targets are 50, or the single targets are 45 and this is 40. But overall, for a tank to have a break, though, that's really good. So, AoE breaks and single target breaks. So Boschke's your man if you need a tank for physical and magic. So if you happen to get one of him, that's awesome. Let's see if there's any other units I'm giving a damn about. Yeah, there's a couple. Alright, so Hio. Oh, actually, let me look at something. Oh, I was wrong. It's not Arenia, it's Roberta that's stronger. Okay, Arenia is pretty good, but we'll get to that later. So Hio, you can get him 7-star. Supposedly he's supposed to be one of the better units in the game right now. Has a lot of fire damage. He can do most of his abilities twice. And I believe once you give him the 7-star, he gets more and more crazy stuff. He has a lot of unmitigated damage, AoE and single target damage, which is weird. He can reduce fire resistance. And so basically what you do, you try to get him either... He can also reduce lightning resistance. I try to get him either a lightning or fire sword, depending on which one you need. And like his TMR is his clothes, which give him Blade Master, which boosts his attack when equipped with a large sword. And there's also gloves that you can get, I believe, from his event, which hopefully will come back in the future. I think that boosts attack another 15% when you're single wielding. But overall, this unit's one of the more ridiculous units in the game right now. Physical damage-wise, a little bit of magic damage. Frivia, I mentioned her earlier. She's one of the strongest chain finishers in this game. So Frivia's Needle, which is her TMR, it's an ice sword. Gives her a lot of magic and attack. Probably the second most damaging hybrid in the game right now. Next to Malfisi, who we went over earlier. But basically what you do with her, you chain cast Frostfire Blitz over and over. Ice damage, reduce ice resistance. I believe that gets to 70% once you level it up all the way. And then also, on occasion, you'll cast her LB. Her LB is pretty much AoE stop. Doesn't do that much damage, but if you need an AoE stop, that's there for you. Zahn, real quick, I'll go over Zahn real quick. If you happen to get him or Laura Croft, work them up because they get the ability Thief, boost drop rate of items and rare items from enemies. So, you know, get them serviceable and then upgrade this skill as much as possible, and it's going to boost your drop rates for things. And like you'll be doing like farming missions and stuff for Chris or whatever, or not Chris, the upgrade materials for skills. So get this up, you know, get him some respectable damage and then carry him. You know, he also has Twist of Fate, which is a fun ability sometimes. Mirror positive status effects from the enemy on all allies and remove all of its status effects. So you can basically take buffs from an enemy and put them on your guy, which can be pretty funny in some boss fights. So not a super powerful unit, but he has his uses. And then Roberta is actually who I meant to say was the most powerful Lancer in the game right now. Reason being, Crimson Blood, you know, it's decent as Dragon Killer. Any of the killers in this game, that means it's a 50% attack boost. And go over specials here. You see she has all the elements covered right here. She has a jump, boosts her own attack, Pike Mastery, which you can upgrade, basically increases her damage with spears. And just overall, if you get this unit upgraded with the killers, her jumps can do such ridiculous damage, especially if you can get her a chaining partner like another Roberta, but I believe she also goes to 7 stars, so she's one of the more ridiculous units in the game. And yeah, I believe we got one more unit, then I'll stop. Oh, we got 2 more units. Okay, so Barbara Sia. Barbara Sia right now is probably in your top 2 to 3 casters, maybe 4 to 5, depending on what you got going on. She's super strong. She had that TMR. I used to use her primarily for a long time until I got Sakura. So the cool thing about Barbara Sia, all this stuff is good, but Tornado's your main thing. Wind damage and reduce wind resistance of all enemies. So it's an Imperil, it's an AoE, and it's wind damage. So that's super strong. And then when you get her to 7 star, it actually becomes even stronger, which is pretty ridiculous. But she fills a lot of roles besides damage. She has dual black magic. She can petrify enemies, which is actually underrated. If you need wind damage without magic, she has Flurry, because occasionally you'll get those missions. They'll be like, do wind damage, don't use magic. So Flurry works for that. Cyclone Shield, on occasion for a defensive turn, helps her dodge 4 times and boosts her magic and spirit. She has I believe this is a 70% resistance buff to wind and lightning for all allies, which is strong. She has an MP regen that actually buffs the MP amount after using the shield I just showed you, or Storm Ward, which I also just showed you. And then she has a Sunder ability that can cast lightning and wind damage. Powers up after using Flurry, Iraja, or Tornado. So for single target, that can be really good. And so what you do with her, you basically chain Tornado. There's a couple of people that can do Tornado in this game. Kid Rydia, her. I'm not sure if 7-star Malfisi might be able to do it. I forget, there's a couple other units that can do it. But basically, if you can chain Tornado even with like 2 people, you can get like 80 hit chains, AoE. So as long as you can imperil them, that'll be doing fat amounts of damage. And this is the last unit I'm going to, Explorer Eileen. She's a little bit better than regular Eileen. Unfortunately, she has some issues when it comes to her graphics, her chaining frames. This is also actually a really good TMR Tomb Raider. Boost HP, fill LB gauge every turn, increase chance of countering, and boost attack when single weapon is equipped. So some staying power with some attack, that's pretty strong. With this girl though, basically what you want to do, she also has Treasure Hunter, by the way, which is pretty nice for your farm teams. She has a couple things you can do. AoE fire here on TNT, which is nice. Acrobatic maneuvering if you need to dodge for whatever reason. And then earthworks, oops. It's a resistance to stone and earth. Actually pretty good if you need that. Pile driver, that's her main ability you'll be using. Unmitigated damage. And then her LB, which is actually pretty strong. Point blank impact. Unmitigated damage one turn and enable killing blow. Killing blow is basically this big AoE that hits really hard. So she's a pretty good unit. Chains well with regular Eileen, but that's about it, unfortunately. But she's pretty strong overall. So, and that's all the units I'm going to go over for my box, guys. So hopefully you learned a little bit. And yeah, so Showtime Doctor, Showtime DR. You found my YouTube. Hit a like if you enjoyed the content. Also, I'm on Twitch at Showtime DR. And if you check out the notes or the title info, there's a link to the Discord. You can come in. We got a Final Fantasy B tab along with some other tabs for some other games. So be glad to help you out if you feel like coming in. Otherwise, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Oh, actually, you know what? I kind of forgot to go over Transterra. I'll tell you what, guys. Watch my next video I'm going to do because I'm going to upgrade Transterra. And then we'll go into her skills a little bit too. So I'll see you guys later. Peace.